What happens when XRP is adopted at scale, all in crypto, and Jake Claver are going to break it down. We also have new clips from Paul Barron. We have new clips from Matt Hogan on XRP Ripple Prime and a ton of other news and information. This video, let's just jump in. Lots to get to. Wanted to ask you why you all in on XRP. Spent a year and a half waking up every day trying to figure out how I was wrong. Similar to Michael Burry, right? Like you have this thesis, you have this conviction, and if you're a critical thinker and you are intelligent, you know that you don't know everything. And so you try to poke holes in your own thesis, and I couldn't poke any holes in it. And again, I don't think I'm the smartest person in the world. There are people that are far more intelligent than I am. But after spending that much time on it and thinking critically through things and looking over everything, I just came to the conclusion that this is absolutely going to be adopted at scale and used to grease the rails, the payment rails for how everything is going to move in the future for back-end settlement, for institutions, and the back end of the stock market, other markets, global commerce. It's really the only thing that's strategically positioned to be able to facilitate that through all the different things that have happened over the past 13 years that it's been around. So because of that, again, I'm a long-term investor. Think investments. If you are investing in something, I think it's a 4-year time horizon at a minimum. And so, I consolidated my position all in on XRP in 22. So we're not even to the 4-year time horizon that I had originally set for myself. We're close. Yeah, 26, no, February 26th will be about 4 years that I've had this consolidated position. And I thought at least by that point we would see, some significant upside. And we've already seen a 10x for what I bought a lot of XRP at. So, but I think there's going to continue to be upside. And that's why I continue to stay here. And I continue to dollar cost average even at $2 and $3. Believe over the long term that this asset goes to 100, 1,000, 10,000, $100,000 over the next 10 years, and potentially much faster than people. $100,000 over the next 10 years. Imagine how much money that would you have. I would be a multi-billionaire. What about you? That's crazy to say, but that's where I think I'm going to be in 10 years. I don't know it's going to be 100 grand. I would settle for $8 or $10,000. That is what I would settle for. We have talked to a handful of fund managers that have launched XRP ETFs here recently, all of which have been very successful. Do you think we're at a phase now where the institutional validity that's being put out there within Wall Street, along with the demand that's coming from both institution and retail, has this started to step XRP up to the level of what's happening in the Bitcoin and ETH ETFs? I think that we're moving in that direction, right? I think that there is a very interesting story playing out around stablecoin. Remember, this is Sandy Call from Franklin Templeton, Head Innovation Officer. If you're not familiar with who this person is, XRP is one of the only chains that also has its own stable coin, right? The RLUSD. And I think that that adds a new element to what they might be able to do in terms of building business around the chain. Don't forget, I think one of the most exciting prospects of these new rails is going to be the vast increase in the number of computer-to-computer transactions that are going to start to occur as we see more people get comfortable with Web3 models, right? And so I think that when you have your own stablecoin and you've got this chain that is already a public chain that has an independent verification network operating around it, this starts to become, I think, a pretty interesting business case, which is why we've been looking to partner with and doing more with Ripple over the last couple of years. Don't forget, they had some challenges here in the US while that lawsuit was on. Outside the US, they've been continuing to build their business dramatically. We operate globally, so we've been engaged with them in Asia for some time, and now we're seeing that start to spread out to more regions. Hands down, in my personal opinion, XRP is the best asset to hold in the crypto market right now. It's better than Bitcoin, it's better than Ethereum, it's better than Solana at the price that you are seeing it right now. Guys, we're going to look back at this time, and we're going to know that we put the time in to understand what was happening, and we took the most advantage of what we have. And I'm just really looking forward to celebrating that with you. I'm really looking forward to that. All right, did he say a few years ago? Me play this. Matt, everybody wants to know, how did you get the XRP ticker symbol? That's prime real estate right there. All credit goes to Hunter Horsley, our CEO, Bitwise. A few years ago, you have to reserve these tickers. So you have to petition the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ that you want to reserve these tickers, that you're planning to launch an ETF related to that ticker. And then you have to prove that you're planning to do that. You have to show momentum in that direction. And we look back in our archive, it was a few years ago, Hunter told Teddy that we wanted to reserve this because we knew we were marching in the direction of XRP. So really excited to have that ticker. No, the ticker is not everything, but it's an important thing, and obviously that is the iconic ticker. So it was great to have that for launch. Love that. Love to hear that. All right. Here's another clip from the same interview about Ripple Prime. Speaking of M&A, one of the things I had in mind, I don't know if you agree here, but once the market structure bill is passed into law and is clarity, across the United States, what you can and can't do, what are the guardrails? Could we see M&As skyrocket, maybe some of the TradFi folks? The banks say, you know what, I don't want to build out all these crypto infrastructure items. I'm going to go buy these crypto native firms. You think we might see things like that? Yeah, I think you'll definitely see that. I think that's going to be a natural response because you sort of have the regulators starting a race, like shooting a gun off to start a track race. And some companies will choose to build and some companies will choose to buy. I think you'll start to see that next year. The Genius Act goes into effect in January of 2027, right? So next year is the building year for companies that are looking to enter that space. Some may buy. I think you'll start to see that next year. The Genius Act goes into effect in January of 2027, right? So next year is okay. So it sounds like a Genius Act is still going to take until the beginning of 2027. Remember when they passed the law, they still have to do all of the rulemaking, and that's what takes time. So when they pass regulation with the Clarity Act, it's still going to take 27, maybe into 28 by the time all of that rulemaking gets done. And we've talked a lot about that on this channel. Something else he brought up here that I really need to talk to you about is there's only so much blockchain infrastructure on the planet. This is why you see Ripple kind of expanding and acquiring different companies. You're going to start seeing a lot of buying, and there's only so much infrastructure left. So I would imagine that Ripple will make some more acquisitions over the next 6 to 12 months trying to get ahead of the larger institutions who are going to need this infrastructure more than anything. Is the building year for companies that are looking to enter that space. Some may choose to do it via acquisition. The same is true for tokenization. Right now is the time to build before the regulatory gun really goes off and you can operate at scale. So I think that will be true. Maybe the thing people aren't looking at, two things in M&A I'll call out for you, Tony. I think crypto wallets are going to be attractive M&A targets because that's a way to connect with crypto customers, which is one of the hardest things to find. So I think that's a particularly valuable area I would keep an eye on. And then I think the reverse is also true, which is large-scale crypto companies may acquire firms in the traditional space as those two places merge. I'm not sure it's one direction. I think it may be bilateral, and maybe people aren't considering that bilateral approach, but I think you'll see that in the next year or two. That's like Ripple going after G Treasury and Ripple going after Hidden Road, right? Turning them into these platforms that can use all of their technology going the opposite way from the crypto to the traditional and then combining the two. That's an interesting comment as well. That's such a great point. The opposite happening, and we're seeing a bit of that. One that comes to mind is Ripple and Hidden Road and things like that. Exactly right. Yeah, I think Ripple has been at the forefront of this, right? If you imagine that the two worlds are coming together, it doesn't have to be the case that it's only coming from this direction, right? We think in crypto that crypto is going to disrupt TradFi. Well, if that's true, we should be buying them, right? And we should be co-opting their customers and giving them a better experience with new tools and lower costs and all of those things. Those customers aren't necessarily easily going to migrate directly to crypto and aided, but you're starting to see it. You mentioned XRP sort of on the bubble of this is some of the acquisition activity we've seen out of firms like Robinhood, which is a quasi-crypto company sort of straddling that border. I think you could see more and more of this over time. That was a great clip, man. A lot of really good information there. Let me see here. Ondo Finance did post this on tokenization. One message I have for institutions is that you cannot afford to wait any longer. The time is now. The moment to jump in is now. The time is now. You're not at the table. You probably are on the menu. I would say act now and don't wait for it because first movers are now shaping the industry, setting the rules and really capturing part of the value chain. And for everyone else who is still waiting and waits to be a follower, it will be much harder to get back in. If you're not looking at this actively, I think a fast-forward strategy is not going to be the most successful approach. I am really hoping that we'll take the best of TradFi and the best of DeFi and find this nice middle ground. Crypto is no longer Wild West. Crypto is developed tremendously. There is regulation.